Welcome back, everybody. So if you've read the title, this video is about alcohol stoves. Pros and cons. This is going to be the first video in a series of videos that we're going to be doing that's just going to be covering outdoor camping stoves. And I thought to start with, we'll just talk about alcohol stoves. Now, the cool thing about alcohol stoves is you don't have to buy one unless you want to. Now what I mean by that is they're pretty dang easy to make a functional one that's going to boil water and cook food. Now, on the table here, I only have one alcohol stove I bought, and that's this guy right here. And I'm going to go ahead and get it out of the pouch. And it's a Red Camp Trangia copy. Is basically what it is. Alright, if you're not familiar with a Trangia, there is a ton of videos on YouTube. You could literally spend probably the next 4 years watching Trangia videos on YouTube. But basically, a Trangia type stove is usually made of brass. I have seen a couple out there in the past that were made of aluminum. I don't see those anymore. But basically, it has a real nice O-ring that seals it off, and any unburnt fuel will remain in here, and you can seal it up and carry it that way. Okay? They usually this comes with a little simmer ring, and that's a little ring that you throw on there to control how much flame you got. It's called a simmer ring. And the nice thing about this Red Camp one is it came with a stove stand. And it can be used like this or like this. And your stove and your pot would set on here. But this and one other stove which I can't find, I looked everywhere for, I had an original Trangia. And I have no idea where it is. So I said, you know what? This is the one I can find. I even store it in the box it came in. I do know that this, I think this was under like 22 bucks or something like that when I bought it. That was a long time ago. But I love alcohol stoves. Now, every other stove system I have setting here, I made. Now, we got the very simple, or maybe not so simple, penny stove. And they were called penny stoves because usually somebody would drill a hole here, and that's how you'd get fuel in it, and they'd drop a penny over it to seal it. I kind of did away with that, and what I did, you can see my holes. Those are for the hot gases. And then I made a cozy out of that welding blanket material. And that cozy helps concentrate more of the heat in the stove, which causes a thermal effect, which causes more of the alcohol to vaporize. So this is a hot runner. And it's just made from a couple pop cans. Real simple. Then my take on a Fancy Feast stove. And typically with these Fancy Feast stoves, this middle part would be made out of a tomato paste can, and that was usually steel. But I had a piece of machined aluminum that I put in here, and I even sealed up and I put insulation inside here to help concentrate more of the heat. And then, kind of like a redneck, or backwoods I should say, homemade kind of Trangia. Holds its own fuel, got burn holes all around here, and in use, when you'd light that, you'd take this stand, it'd go here, a stand would go here, and your pot goes right here. And the stand also acts as a windbreak, which if you're not familiar with alcohol stoves, you really do need a windscreen or some kind of a windbreak. The more wind you got, the more fuel you're going to burn without cooking your food. Or the wind could just blow it out if the wind's heavy enough. But that's kind of like my homemade Trangia. And this can, what are they called? In the food service industry, they have those tables where they serve the food, and they have the little hot can that they light that goes under. I don't know. I don't work in the food industry, but I've seen them before. That's what this can was. And then the inner tube that I have going down in there was made from a department store travel shaving guy. In fact, hold on, let me step over here and grab one, show you what I'm talking about. So that inner tube was made from a travel shaving thing, and I just cut this off once it was empty and use that to make the center tube. Okay, then this is the kit. You've seen a version of it when I did my review on Dave Canterbury's canteen cup set. But this kit is sometimes what I'll put inside one of my packs. And it's got one of my custom little alcohol stoves. 3 bottles of alcohol. Some matches are down in there. A cigarette lighter. And one of my little cozies, or like what's here, and a little funnel. And that's so I can fill these bottles back up. And I use heat. And the reason I use heat as an alcohol source is because I can go into any gas station practically in the continental United States, and I can find heat on the shelf for sale anywhere. Just about any decent sized department store too that has an automotive section will have heat. And this is what I use with my alcohol stoves. I don't use anything else. Now, I'm going to do a little burn excuse me, on each of these stoves so you can see what they look like. But before we do that, I want to talk about fuel bottles. Now, if you're lugging this heat bottle around with you, that's fine. You know, that's cool. But I got one of these Trangia bottles, and I gotta say, I like it. It's good and tough. I mean, I unless I fall off a mountain, I don't think I'm gonna break this. That's how tough it is. It has this metal ring that reinforces where the threads are, so if you even crank down threading this together, because it unthreads here, and it's got an O-ring, it's really well built. And you just put your alcohol in there and tighten this guy down. Well, they did this reinforcement ring so when you're tightening down on these threads, you're not going to split this plastic. You're not going to break this. Well, okay, you could probably break it, but you're not going to do it easily. Great little fuel bottle. Now, before I get into doing the burn and showing you what each of these look like, I want to talk about the pros and cons of alcohol stoves. And that's the cat. No, I'm busy filming, so no, I'll talk to you later. Alright, pros. Alcohol stoves work pretty reliably in just about any weather type. Cold weather, they work. Hot weather, they work. Wet weather, long as you don't have rain or water actually coming on the stove, they work. Dry weather, they work. Now let's talk about, and that's the biggest pro about alcohol stoves. They work, and if you make your own, they're pretty cheap. If you buy your own, you're not going to spend a ton of money. Okay? Now let's talk about the cons, because they do have a few cons. First con is you're carrying a flammable liquid as a fuel source with you. This adds, I'm not going to say significant weight, but it does add weight to your pack. And it is a flammable fuel source. You're carrying it on your back. If this bottle or this bottle is not sealed, or like I have these little bottles in here, if it's not sealed and it's leaking, you have the potential to get your entire pack doused with a highly flammable liquid. One spark and you're not having a very good day. So that would be the first con. Second con, when these are burning and it's middle of the day, bright sunlight, stuff like that, you cannot see the flames, which can kind of be a little scary sometimes, because you're like, you're sitting here with a cigarette lighter. Did I light it? And you're doing this. You're putting your hand over it to feel the heat. That's the only way half the time I can tell if they're lit during the day, is to put my hand over it. Third con, like this Fancy Feast type stove, if this gets knocked over, you're going to have basically like napalm will come out of it. It'll saturate the area, and you're going to have a fire that you are not going to easily be able to put out. Same with this pop can stove. Although knocking this over, it's got such a low profile, I kind of find hard to believe. But you're basically dealing with a flammable liquid. Treat it as you would treat gasoline. You know, you're be careful. Okay? Third con, unless you're, I can't see doing a long-term out in the woods hike or anything with alcohol, because an alcohol stove system, because you're going to be taking a lot of alcohol with you. Unless you plan on doing campfires half the time, and let's be serious. Right now, the American Southwest is going through a huge drought. They've got burn restrictions everywhere. You're not going to be doing a campfire, not unless you want to get busted and possibly go to jail. Or worse, you do a campfire and you accidentally set, a whole region on fire. They got wildfires going on all over the place here in the U.S. And I was listening to a report. They got wildfires going on up in Canada, up in their western regions. So, yeah. If this is your primary way of cooking, you got to have fuel. Kind of annoying, okay? But I still use these. I still use them because they work. I can go out and there be 2 feet of snow, and I'm going to do my camp. These will still burn. They'll still, I can melt snow, I can boil water. They just work. And like I said, you can build your own stoves. So now that I've talked this to death, let's do some burns, and I'll give you an idea of what they look like. So we're going to start with my little custom stove, which I keep showing you this type of view, but you're not seeing what makes this stove so special, and you're going to see that this time. So, I don't know how well that's showing up in camera. There is a coil of aluminum foil, and then that's sandwiched with this same material inside this little stove. And I go ahead and I just put alcohol directly in there. In fact, I think there's a little bit of alcohol in it. In fact, we're going to test that right now. I'm going to shut the light off. Now it's dark enough, and we will see. Nope. Nope, there's alcohol in there. It's just a tiny amount. So I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit in. And let this get burning. Let me blow that out, add a little more, and just let it saturate. Because the nice thing about this design is when you're done, you can snuff it out or blow it out, put that cap on, and save what is remaining of the fuel. There we go. Now this, I'd put a pot stand around it. You haven't seen all my cook kits and my pot stands and all that, but this one needs no priming. You light it, you immediately put your stuff on, and you start cooking. Real simple, real straightforward, and it works every time. Okay, snuff it out. That's a little warm, not bad though. I'm gonna set it aside, let it cool. This Fancy Feast type design, it's kind of the same. Although getting this lit is going to be fun. Oh, there we go. I don't know if I put enough in it to prime it. Probably not. I didn't want to put too much in there, but I'll do the rest of the bottle. All right. Once it heats up, it'll start burning around this outer ring, or you can give it a little hand. If I gave it enough fuel. I don't use this one too much anymore. I've kind of moved on from it. Ah, there it goes. And this one, you know, all you need is a couple cans and a little bit of time. There's lots of videos out there. Like I said, mine's got built-in insulation here in the base. It's a little bit more involved to build, but it works pretty good. And that's putting off some serious heat. Whew, I can feel it. I'm standing way over here. Now let's see if we can blow it out. And it blows out. So there's that one. And we'll put that aside. Grab another little fuel bottle. Or actually, let's do this guy. So this is my homemade Trangia. This one works surprisingly well. When I get another one of these cans empty, I think I'm going to make another one, and I'll do you guys a build video if anybody's interested. But, alright. So it's just like a Trangia. It lights down in the pipe like this, and it works its way up to temperature. And then the actual little holes will start, and it's getting lit, and there it is going. And it's not quite hot enough yet, but you get an idea. I'm standing here and blocking the outer light. Let's see. Come on. There we go. Now it's warming up. You can see it's a nice little concentrated flame, and then with this built-in like little windscreen pot stand I set on there, and you set on and you can cook, and it works really well. And like I said, this just like this stove, when this is cooled off, I can go ahead and put the can, pretty much is sealed up. I could do a build video on those if anybody's interested. But that sucker's burning really good, but blow it out. I'm going to push that aside, way over, because it's still got some fuel in it. Quite a bit of fuel, actually. And I'm going to let that cool off. Then, do a little penny stove, right? Haven't done that one in a long time. I used to be obsessed with these little stoves. I've made, God, 50, 60 variations at least. But this one, you would take your fuel bottle. I'd squirt some here in the center pan. I'd squirt some in the outer pan. Okay. And when this drains, there's 4 little holes here. There's enough fuel left in the outer pan and inner pan to prime it. This one's got a prime. So right now it's priming, it's building up temperature. And basically how all these alcohol stoves work is they build up temperature and it starts vaporizing more of the alcohol fuel. And as the fuel, got that one sealed up, as the fuel starts vaporizing more, builds up pressure inside and starts pushing more of the vapor out of the actual holes, and that's how you get your little burner pattern. And that's why alcohol stoves that are made out of a material that transfers heat really well, like aluminum, that's why they work so well. This little Trangia clone, it's brass, just kind of like a Trangia. And the big problem with those brass ones is if you run them dry too many times, you'll crack them. You can run these and other ones made of aluminum dry thousands of times. I've never seen one crack. So something to keep in mind there. As you can see, this is still priming. This is why I kind of fell out with this type of stove, is because it took so long to prime before it was actually burning correctly and I could put a pot and stand on it. But you can't beat how cheap these are. The 2 cans I used for this, here in Michigan we have a 10-cent return, and the cans I used were non-returnable. They were from Ohio, so I just cut it up and used it. And here we are. And I don't see any of my burners lighting. What's going on? There's just a little bit of fuel left there. Uh-oh. It failed to light. I got a little fuel left here. I'll squirt some more in there. I'll squirt some more in here. Let's try that again. And like I said, that's why I kind of fell out with these pop can stoves. They work, but it's kind of like that that high maintenance girlfriend or boyfriend. You know what I'm saying? You always got to be paying attention to it. So, we'll see if we attain launch this time. But in full sunlight, this blue flame is invisible. And you can see how tall that flame is. It's up there. So it's real easy in full sunlight to have this lit, not knowing it's lit, and either burn yourself or knock something over, or it's just chaos sometimes. We'll see if she will go. Will she go? I'm actually kind of surprised that it didn't light off that first time. But, once again, it's one of the reasons I stepped away from this kind of stove. I mean, don't get me wrong, something like this in a glove box, in your car, you know, like I said, it only cost me a little bit of time. Ah, there we go. I'm starting to see ignition. And you'll see the neat little flame pattern I came up with for this one. Oh, there we go. So you can see I have 4 outer and 4 inner little flames. Let me see if I can zoom in a little bit on that. Now if I can just get this thing to focus. Come on. And of course it doesn't want to focus. Oh, there it goes. So I have 4 inner flames and 4 outer flames. And that's how I kind of did this one. And usually with these, instead of trying to blow it out, I have a little snuffer. And I would just smother it. Just like that. And then after it cooled off, I'd try to pour out as much fuel. Yeah, there's a little bit left in it. I'd try to pour out as much fuel as I could. It's really a pain. And then just for giggles, we will do the Trangia clone. I'm not going to put a whole lot of fuel in here, because I'm just going to be trying to pour it out later. Okay, about that much. Real scientific here. I didn't weigh anything. And there we go. Also, another nice thing is you don't need a cigarette lighter to light these. Oh, trying to get it to focus. There we go. You don't need a cigarette lighter to light these. You can use a ferro rod. You know, you just need a good spark. And this one's already blooming. And like I said, Trangias are super popular. They've been around forever. It was the Swiss Army that actually started using these. I can't remember the model of the mess kit, but it was part of the soldier's mess kit. Actually had a Trangia stove very similar to this in the mess kit. Pretty cool, actually, I think. But there you go. It's burning well. And we got our simmer ring. I'm just going to throw that on there, just show you what it's like. So see, I cut the flame way back, and I can cut that flame, if I can get this to do what I want it to do. There we go. I can cut that flame way down. See? And that's how you would attain a simmer. You would keep your food warm without actually boiling it. And you take that off, and she flames right back up. Takes a second for it to build a little bit of pressure. And then you can take this simmer ring, making sure it's fully closed, and you can snuff that out. And give it a second, and it's out. So there's alcohol stoves. If anybody's interested in build videos, please hit me up in the comments. You know, in fact, I just wish people would comment a little more and let me know what they're looking for. I had one subscriber ask about fishing gear, and I do have, you know, homemade fishing gear. That's something that's in the works. So until then, I hope everybody enjoyed this little video called an intro to alcohol stoves, pros and cons. Like I said, there's going to be more videos on Just Camp stoves, because you have a lot of different kinds out there, use different type of fuels, and they have their pros and cons. So I'll see y'all later out in the woods.